Welcome to the Blended. My name is Eric. It's our 5th show.
It is. And this one's going to be a little different because it was actually inspired by a meme. So for those listening, visualize this. There's a guy reading a book. On the book, this title, it says, Dating After 25. Inside the book, it says, Learn How to Be a Stepdad. And then there's a guy crying. Of course, this is meant to be funny. But what I thought was interesting, and I'm sure, Eric, you have plenty of insight on this, is do you come to a point in life when you're looking for a partner that you judge them? If, for example, they're single, you think, okay, let's say female, especially for women, let's say you're 35. You don't have any kids and you haven't been married. What's your first reaction to that, Eric?
It's probably not a word. It's probably a
You think something's wrong with her?
Dang, you don't gotta put it like that. I don't know if it's something's wrong with her. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
most likely you're
because
thinking,
you know it's a double standard. Because if you have a 35-year-old guy who's single, doesn't have kids, you don't think twice about it. That's just a good catch.
No.
From a female perspective, that's just a good catch. Oh, I'm so lucky. I find one who hasn't been married, not even divorced, doesn't have any kids. He's not no baggage. But a 35-year-old woman, as a man, don't lie. You're thinking about, okay, why hasn't she been married? What's going on? What's wrong with her that no one has even had a child with her, proposed, been engaged, XYZ.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that. I would look at her and I would say, well, what's going on with her? But equally, if my daughter said to me that she brought home the greatest catch of them all, and he was 35, I would ask the same questions. I would be like, what? So no woman wanted to have a baby with him? I would ask 1,000 questions of why he hasn't been married, why he has no children, what's his ties. I would want to know.
Okay, but see, as a woman, my first thought is, great, he's already gotten everything out of his system. He's been a dog, he's done girls dirty. I don't have to worry about that. He's ready to settle in and be, a man of his word. You don't think that's true as a man?
I mean, as a man, at 35 years old, it took you, let's say you get out of school, let's say at 15, 16, you start your shenanigans, and all the way up to 35 years old, I would use words like high maintenance. I would ask my daughter, first question I would ask her, is he an only child? That's like question number one I'd ask her. Is he an only child? Because he must be difficult. Because in all his travels, let's say he went to college. Dad, he's a doctor. Okay, so he went to high school. Then he went to college. Then grad school. He did all these different moves, and within all those movements, he hadn't found nobody, or nobody has found him.
Okay, wait a minute. Maybe if you are in such a rigorous study, like that of being a doctor, like that of being an attorney, and you want to stay focused, and you go, I don't have time to play the games. Maybe I dated around. Maybe I didn't have anything long term, but I certainly wasn't going to get a woman pregnant.
So, the women that he encountered at the age of 35, then I would say, how long was his relationships? Was he in relationships for long? If he said he was in relationships for 2 or 3 years, then those are 2 or 3 years that some woman kind of, which I'm sure she would say, wasted her life. Because I'm sure she didn't just sign up to hang out with the grad kid.
That's every woman's story. That's every woman's story. Every woman will come in here. I could bring anyone off the street and she would tell you, I shaped up that man for the woman that would become his wife. I did what she didn't have to.
Probably vice versa too, right?
100%.
Oh, okay.
But especially with men.
Why especially?
Because you guys always don't know what you have until it's gone, and you always have to learn, and it's just like, we're always way ahead of you.
I really believe that's a cliche that we repeat because it makes you feel better.
I've experienced it, so it's not about feeling better.
Well, I mean, but for a guy to say, oh, I messed up on that one, that's something that he's repeating pretty much based on he's heard that before.
Wrong. He actually messed up, and hindsight 2020.
But they talk about that when they're in high school. I just had a guy the other day.
Oh, well, no, I was talking about a grown ass man.
But so why would the grown ass man say from a high school girl, oh, I messed up on Emily.
No,
Oh,
because
Emily was the best
it's not
thing.
about Emily being the best thing. You know, the one that got away. It's about, man, I didn't do her right. I treated her wrong. But in treating her wrong, I became a better man because I learned something. I learned what not to do. But poor Emily had to withstand some awful treatment.
Well, but poor Emily, inexperience flips both ways, right? So now, poor
Yeah.
Emily has sharpened her sword for the next experience.
Yep.
Newsflash.
Now
double
Todd comes
standard.
around
Right.
and gets a hard time because of what Brian did.
Exactly, right. But newsflash, just so I'm on the same page with life, don't play that with my daughters, though. They don't need to be sharpened. Daddy sharpened.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, a little disclaimer out there. But back on track to what we were talking
Yes,
about.
I know we got off on a tangent.
How did we do that?
I don't know if that was good. I think it was enjoyable.
I know it was enjoyable. But back to Todd or Mike, who's 35 years old.
Yeah.
Does that make him a good catch, or a 35-year-old woman that doesn't have no attachments? What's her attach? Is she too clingy on her sister? Is her and her sister forgot to get off the A train where they're supposed to separate from being sisters? Or is she too clingy with her friend?
See, I think that's a natural tendency if you don't have a spouse. That's anybody's tendency.
35.
If you don't have anyone, you're going to be closer to friends if you don't have a partner. That's,
Okay.
That's not rocket science.
Okay, what's the next natural tendency? The next natural tendency, newsflash. So you're 35 years old, strong, beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
You have no issues.
Mm-hmm.
You have no kids right now because you chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, same thing with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting ready to go into a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You're really feeling this person. It's perfect.
Yeah.
You know what's gonna make it unperfect?
Oh gosh, what?
Because you're going to be on the nitrous. He's on the nitrous ride. The nitrous ride is, hurry up. My clock is ticking.
You're saying for from the female perspective.
From the female perspective, if a guy's 35 and he hasn't had children, most likely he doesn't want children. So he's getting ready to get bullied into having children, right? So that's just what's going to happen.
That's
He's about
from your perspective.
Yeah. He's definitely giving. He's 35. If you don't have kids, why when you all of a sudden now you're 40, you 35, 40, you want to enter into some gaga goo goo.
Okay, so you're making a case. Here's the predicament that I'm in with understanding this whole thing.
Right.
On the one end, I know if your daughter came to you and said, I met this great guy, he's 25, 28 years old, he already has a kid, he hasn't been married, you'd be like, no, I'm not interested in you playing stepmom to some kid and all the issues that come with that. Same time, 28-year-old guy comes, hasn't been married, has no kids, you're also questioning him.
No,
so which one is it?
How you gonna jump from 28 to 35?
Okay, let's say it's 35. Let's take away the 28. Let's say it's 35.
And then how old is she? How old is my daughter at the time?
Let's say she's around the same age. Obviously, you're going to have a 15-year gap at that point. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm saying average.
So with my daughter, I mean, at that point, before that, I'm looking at her like, I'm talking to my wife in the bed, whispering like, babe, what's going on with this one?
Why isn't she married yet? Why hasn't she found someone? Why shouldn't she have kids? You're questioning your own daughter at that 35 at that point?
I mean, I probably would be like, I'm trying to understand, I probably would be thinking, oh man, where did I go wrong? Did I push this level of excellence so much?
Or independence?
Or independence? Did I push that on her so much?
So, because you do want her to find love.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I want to have grandkids.
Okay, but what if she doesn't want grandkids? What if it's 35 and she's like, I'm just getting around to getting married, I'm good with having no kids?
I mean, ultimately, an adult is going to do what an adult's going to do. And if that's what she's going to do, then it is what it is. But you just have to know that when you do want kids, it's going to be a little later. My sister had her first kid at hold on, I'll get this messed up, like 37.
Yeah, that's considered a geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah, like
35. 35
like,
and up,
yeah, it was over the 35. She had her
Mm-hmm.
first kid. Met her husband in Ecuador.
Yeah.
You know, like, but for her, they stayed in the same kind of organization, meaning they have the certain religious beliefs, and they end up marrying within that religion, and that just simply made sense, right?
Right.
They both were looking for that same thing. And I do believe if you're staying within that realm of maybe belief system, and you meet someone within that same belief system, then it's perfect. But how many?
Right. That's the thing, is that my perspective on this is that I think that people have to be more realistic. And people might say, well, that doesn't mean you have to settle. I'm like, no, it doesn't mean you have to settle, but you have to be realistic. Everyone's dead, especially women, dead set on finding their Prince Charming, who's tall, dark, and handsome, has no kids, an excellent career, makes 6 figures, is good to his mom, doesn't have any attachment. Like, come on. It's not going to happen.
But how do you know when you're not settling, right? Because that conversation you're having right now, if you were counseling my daughter, I would knock on the glass and be like, yo, pump your brakes. Like, what do you mean? Like, that sounds like settling.
It's called love. That's when you don't know you're settling. I'll give you a perfect example myself. I met my husband when I was 21, okay? He was 41. We've been together 10 years. He just turned 53. I'm 32. He has 5 children, has been married twice before. His eldest daughter is a year younger than I am. And at 21 years old, I knew all of this and kept going because I just knew he was the one.
Okay, so because I know you guys.
I just dropped a lot on you.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, for sure. That's the left hook. She tried to hit me with the left hook. Take that. Say something. Say something back. You know he listening.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Look at you on the ground. Cut me.
Yeah, exactly. So because I know you guys, I know that anomaly worked. Right?
I will say an anomaly. It is an anomaly.
Yeah.
I will say that.
That worked. I mean, and all the nuances that go into your family, like you said, the 5 kids and a personality. It's huge. Like a personality that you have that's you're designed this way to be able to tackle whatever came along with that. Because what you just described to us lets us all know that there's things that came along with that if you weren't girded in your personality, that's going to take you down, you know, on a daily basis. But the average person is not, I'm going to say the average person, those personalities can handle that. Other personalities, okay, so for example, you go in and you meet somebody, they're 35. She's a 35-year-old woman, because we don't want to skirt this nitrous issue. And now that she's not chasing the career no more,
you need to fall in love, propose, get married, have a kid.
Come on, that's what that means. Yeah, like.
But
so,
you know what though?
So you can't call that love. How do you call that love?
Yes, but it's also reality because
it's her reality.
No, it's reality for a lot of people. Because say you love this woman, you're 35 years old. Because we're talking about the opposite of the blended, right? Because the blended is, okay, we're both 35, we've both been married, we both have kids. Now we're going to put this family together.
Right.
All right? The Brady Bunch, right?
Yeah.
The opposite of that is, okay, now we're both single, but now we're on an expedited timeline because you want kids and we need to get married and we have all the societal pressure to do things, quote unquote, the society's version of right way, right?
Right.
That's a pressure that poor woman has to feel because guess what? The 35-year-old male at 40 can up and say, you know what? I think I do want kids. And boom, he can be a dad. That's not the case for a woman.
You just call this woman poor woman. She's been a strong...
not poor woman because, oh, poor little one. I'm saying poor woman, I'm saying women plural. Every woman is in that position if they want children and they haven't found their quote-unquote one.
But in the next 2 or 3 years, on her timeline, she's definitely going to find the next one. That just sounds selfish to me. That just sounds like a person who's not chasing love. She's selfish and she's chasing her dreams. And I don't mean selfish in a bad way. I really don't. I mean the same way I say to that guy who doesn't want kids. He's just like, I'm good. This young lady that's gonna wait until she's 35. These are red flags. They're just red flags to me. So
it's a red flag that a woman wants to make sure she has a career before she becomes a wife and a mother.
If at the end of that, her whole focal point now is to mate with somebody so she can have kids And now so how do you find love if it's in a rush?
So you're saying you need to be doing everything at once while you're trying to kill it in law school or grad school of any kind, in med school. You need to be also looking for a mate to have a life because it's going to be too late.
So I think it's a problem when you're looking, and I would tell my girls that's number one. I think that's a problem.
When you're looking for love?
Right. I think that's
So anyone on a dating app has a problem?
No, I think I don't think they're everybody.
Defend it!
I know.
Defend it, Eric!
I don't think anybody on a dating app has a problem. No. I don't. That's kind of like
Got you up against the corner.
Yeah, I know.
Cut me.
I know. Cut me. Hey, relieve the pressure. No, I just think if you're waiting to accomplish this, and this, then after that say, okay, now it's time to find. So it cannot even be fun. And I'm sure most women would say it's stressful.
Of course.
Because now you've narrowed your time slot into these few years, and now your biological clock is ticking, and now you're thinking, okay, so that sets you up for a few things. Number one, that sets you up to settle, big time, because you're like, he
needs to check off XYZ.
Yeah, these three, these three things. When prior to that, you needed like 8 things for him to check off.
Right.
And I think that you have let people go that would have been amazing in your life. So
see, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. Is I don't think it's necessarily quote unquote settling. You may find the perfect guy, but because he only checked off 7 of the 10, now he's gone. To me, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
I could have easily written my husband off. Said, you're 41 and you have 5 kids, been married twice. I'm out. But there's something
those are some writer offers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right? There are a lot of deal breakers in that.
I'm sorry, big guy. I'm sorry.
A lot of deal breakers there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But because I followed my heart and said, you know what? There's something here I need to figure out. And we didn't jump into it hastily. We took a year of dating within ourselves before we introduced ourselves to family, friends, all that.
Right.
Because we need to make sure, we knew this was a make it or break it decision for the rest of our lives. And we weren't going to be bringing people into it and having to defend our relationship if we didn't know it was really going to work.
Right, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But I've never seen any of that settling. When from the outside perspective, it's what's this, chick doing with a guy twice her age who has kids? Why is she settling? She can get anybody she wants.
No, but
this man's the love of my life.
Yeah, but settling is internal though, right? Settling is not what other people are going to view as settling. So one thing I've always said to my girls was, don't come home talking about, oh, I'm so happy I met a doctor.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I never. To me, that's settling, right? If you decide that based on someone else's accomplishments, that you've just hit that's
jackpot.
Good. Yeah. So settle. So I mean, you can come home and she tells me he's a great guy, Dad. He's a construction worker or he's a whatever. I'm not gonna say whatever, but I want to be able to say whatever.
Hey, you know what? What is it? What do they call them in New York? Trashmen.
Oh yeah.
There's a proper word for that. They make good money.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, they used to make good money back in the day when it was a union and it was really, really good.
Yeah. My point to this whole conversation, to put a bow on it, is to have or to have not a blended family. Right? That's the question. Because you yourself would tell your daughter no, but you didn't follow that, and you wouldn't have your daughter had you taken that stance for yourself at 20-something and said, nah, she has 2 kids and I'm not doing it and she's been married and blah, blah, blah.
But you know me, I always say the same. I always say I would ask the important questions and let you know you better be sure and ask all the important questions to that person before you get into something so deep.
Yeah.
So you're 35, you're meeting a guy that has kids, you better know, especially if you don't have no kids from him.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have no kids from him, you will feel at some point that there's no attachment. You'll feel like, where's my attachment at?
And tell me about your experience in that, because you came in with 2 girls and then had your own. I'm sure you'd be lying to say or didn't feel differently, like your relationship wasn't cemented once you had your biological child.
No, big deal. Like when I had my biological child, I felt like, okay, I have game. I have to cement, right? And sometimes it would feel, because kids, kids that are going into a relationship, they do, avert things that are like, wow. Like I remember my oldest, I love you, baby, but I remember my oldest. She used to. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm sitting there, and she would go into my wife's room. And it's another story of why I say my wife's room. But she would go into my wife's room, and she would shut the door, kind of look at me, and make the little loud slam of the door. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Like, would shut me out.
Yeah.
And it was I mean, she was a kid. But absolutely, when I had mine, and we had more, yeah, the more cement was added. But that's a heck of a pod coming up about when I say my wife's room, right? Because there was a time when it was my wife's room, because that was part of our strategic plan. Because remember, we have girls.
Yeah.
So there's no, our girls, it was very important that our girls, or her girls at that time, never seen anything that we didn't want them to repeat.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
one way to end the podcast. A little teaser. Coming up next.
Yeah, maybe next. I see if I can get up the gumption. You know what I mean? But that's the blended, babe.